Hello lovely people, this is Omdi and once again for a little bit of an audio of Robin talks about things. And today I wanted to kind of react, give some theory or something like that, some views on things I have recently seen on YouTube, kind of a few people touching on. And no, it's not a big advertising thing, and it's not anything with subscription boxes, because I don't know, for me if I put advertisements on my videos, there's no problem with it. And my subscription box has never ever been broken the whole time, so I don't know what other people are onto there. But I have recently heard some YouTuber, let's call him IBX Toycat for now, talk about a few things that you that teachers tell you in school, and that are kind of not even true, or like actually wrong advice or so on. And I wanted to touch on a few things. Now, I obviously don't know how the railway in Britain or in America is, but basically, and I have also heard this, I think someone tried to tell me, and I was like, no, that's not like that. That some people like to tell you, if you touch the rail of a railway, you'll immediately get electrocuted. And this is actually not true, because usually and normally the two rails that the train actually goes on don't hold any dangerous charge. Now, on some train systems, there is a third rail that's either in the middle or on the left or right, depending on where the trains go, of the rails. So either it's a kind of extra, more yellow plastic thing. For example, in the Vienna Underground, it's this yellow thing where you know that's where the electricity is. But you can't really step on that by accident, and the electrical conductors are below this thing, so you would have to touch it from below to actually get electrocuted. But yeah, some people then tell you, well, if you touch the rail, you're gonna die. No, nothing's gonna happen if you touch a normal train rail. And a lot of trains run with the power wires being above them, so below the train, except that you could get run over by it, there's not really a danger. You can just touch those things and nothing will happen. Except obviously if the power line above the train breaks and falls onto the tracks, then they are charged. Then you shouldn't touch them. But yeah, I think that is something you could figure out. And you shouldn't climb on trains if there are overhead wires, because that can kill you too. But basically the normal train tracks have no charge. Now, you might have seen at a few train tracks that kind of small cables go from one side to the other and into the ground. And you'll go like, well, that's a ground wire. Why do they have a ground wire if they are not charged? Well, they might take on a charge from either some faulty equipment or the train itself, or from a person touching them. I mean, that's not going to be a deadly charge, but it's still going to be something. And this is why most rails still have a ground wire, even if they don't hold any electricity, so that any electricity that might pass through them can get grounded and doesn't go for the whole rails, and someone who is just standing beside them 8 kilometers away still gets electrocuted, because that shouldn't happen. Yeah. So that's a thing I just wanted to comment on, that most of the time the electrical rails or power lines will be either beside the tracks or above them, so basically the tracks themselves shouldn't have a charge. I think there are train systems where actually the tracks hold the charge, but they are not really that common, at least in Europe. Not really know about Asia or America there, but in Europe you wouldn't find a train where actually the energy comes from the tracks. I know that there is such a system somewhere, but I don't know where now. Anyway, so that was one thing. The other thing was not using a calculator. Now, recently also in a video of Captain Sparkles, that was a thing. So seemingly in the UK and in the US, if you have a maths exam, they will tell you, well, part 1 you can use the calculator, and part 2 you can't use the calculator. And obviously some teachers then say, well, there is going to be a point when you don't have a calculator and you have to calculate something. Well, actually, in a workplace, no, that will never be a thing, because even in warehouses and I don't know where, there are calculators just lying around. So basically, if you have a job, you're never gonna have to do maths in your head. You can do if you're sitting in front of the PC and go like, I don't really want to search for the calculator now, then you'll do the thing like 36 divided through 8 in your brain. You might do that, but there will not be a point when you don't have a calculator, because you have got your phones. You can Google what the sign of 32 is. Don't even know if that's a legal thing here. Anyway, so you can just Google the answers, and even if they are like, that's not possible, did you not pay attention in maths? But yeah, you will not have the problem that you don't have a calculator, because you have it nearly everywhere. And you won't believe where I have been to places where there were actual calculators lying around, where I'm like, when will they be used? So you rather will have a calculator when you not need it than none have one when you actually do need it. So that is just really weird to me. And in Austria, basically, now in primary school, obviously you don't use calculators. I didn't even know what a calculator was in primary school, so never mind. Then in secondary school, I think we were allowed to buy ourselves a certain calculator, a Texas Instrument 32, so 30 and then the 2, so the second generation of it, either with solar power or with battery. I went solar because I'm totally a green person there. Yeah, solar power for the win. Anyway, and basically we were only allowed to buy this one. We weren't allowed to buy a graphical one, because we should still draw our graphics and curves and whatever on our own. And there are not really that many tools out there that can really do this well, so that is kind of a thing. Like, you're not going to have a tool with you all the time that can actually draw such curves. Because I don't think that there is actually even a good phone app or a good online thing that does this. So this is a good thing to be able to do, but with the calculation thing, you were allowed to use the calculator. I think in the first 2 years of us having the calculator, we kind of were like not allowed to use them at tests, but then from kind of the higher classes on, like from 9th grade all the way through to 12th grade, we were allowed to use the calculators at every test. And I think we were also allowed to use them in the finals. I think we would have not been allowed to use them for a certain part of the finals, but that was basically a theoretical part. And how are you going to type A plus B and something into your calculator? That's not going to happen. So basically, for the part where we were not allowed to use it, we couldn't use it because it was theoretical. You don't have any numbers there. So that makes sense that you don't even can use it there. But if you like have 5 divided through 10, and obviously that's easy, and especially for me as a person that now is studying IT or computer science, and hopefully make it through that study at some point, but where it's about seconds and milliseconds, then I go like, yeah, that's 0.5, that's no big deal. But well, that's actually, hang on, yeah, that's 0.5. But for slightly more difficult things, you can just use the calculator and it's there. And even if you use it to calculate 1 plus 1, which I actually sometimes do, because sometimes I need to calculate something and then go on. And then I go like 130 plus 1576.65 plus 88, and then I've got a 1, and then I just go plus 1, because why not? I could just take the result I got and add 1, but I also type that into the calculator because it doesn't take much more time than me going like, alright, that's a certain number, now I add 1, and to put it into the calculator and get the end result, really. So I don't think there was anything bad in just using your calculator. Now, at some point, I think when I was in 11th grade, I kind of was like, I don't really want to use the calculator too much. Like, there were a lot of things we had to do where that was not an option. But when we had, in the end, something like 24 plus 15, then it was like, alright, that's 39. I can just do this in my brain. I don't need the calculator. So while everyone else typed that actually into the calculator, I raised my hand, and the teacher never chose me to give the answer. Like, the few times that I was like, yeah, now I know the answer, I'm actually gonna say something, No, no chance. That's my life. When I don't want to be asked, I get asked. When I'm like, yeah, no, the answer, yeah, then no one cares. But anyway, so surely it's good if you can quickly calculate some things in your brain, because I just had this yesterday when I was doing some scheduling things with a friend, and we had a certain amount of minutes that we needed to to go somewhere, and we were like 15 plus those minutes. What's that? If I would have reached for my calculator, it would have taken longer, because I would have gotten over 60 and would have then had to take it minus 60 and whatever. If it's just calculated in our brains, that's actually quicker then. So it's really good if you're not only able to type in things into the calculator, but basically when you do that, you have a kind of algorithm that you kind of stick to on how you do things, and then you know how to do them. And I think this is quite helpful. So in school, there were quite a few things where I'm like, why do I have to learn them? And I mean, for mathematics, I'm still not good at it, and I'm still not a friend of maths, and yeah, I think that's actually going to break my neck at university. But yeah, there are really a lot of things in mathematics where I'm like, actually, why do you need this? I can understand the underlying algorithm without the mathematical aspect, actually. And if I can't, then I don't need it. Yeah, so there's no few in maths, which is why I'm not really a friend of it. And also my brain is like, why should I learn that shit? I don't need it. No, I'm not gonna learn this. I'm just gonna look at that video of a nice bunny. Yeah, so me and maths are not going to be friends, but basically just the concept of algorithms, like, cause a lot of people talk about the YouTube algorithm, and I've touched on this in a previous audio. There is no algorithm running on YouTube, because algorithms don't run. They don't even exist in that sense. The algorithm is only the concept of how you do something. When you have a lock and you turn the key to the left to unlock it, because the lock mechanism is going to the right, and if you turn it to the left, it goes out of the lock portion. Then this is your way of saying, I have got an algorithm. If that thing moves left, then I can open the door. That's the algorithm, but that's not doing anything. That's just a concept. And what you're actually doing is a program. So if people complain about the YouTube programs, then I'm like, yeah, all right. But as long as people complain about the concept of how YouTube does things, that definitely has not changed in years. Because everyone goes, yeah, the algorithm changed. No, I think the way in which the programs function in YouTube, which things they use and where they put them, has stayed the same since YouTube began existing, or like since advertising there began existing. Just the programs changed. Yeah, I don't think they could just constantly keep changing the concept all the way through. I think they have the same concept, but they execute it differently. So never again say the YouTube algorithm did something, because it can't do anything. It's a concept. It's nothing that does anything, like the concept of a bus. Can you take the concept of a bus to your train station? No, you can't. You can't just take the bus to your train station. So, yeah, that just makes me mad. That gets me triggered. That's one of the few things that get me triggered. When someone says, your algorithm isn't working, then I'm like, yeah, it's not supposed to be. The program is supposed to be working. If that's not working, that's bad, but the algorithm isn't supposed to work. Anyway, so good. Then it works. Perfect. Some things there that don't make sense. Anyway, and what else did I just want to touch on? Because I had just something on. Yes, exactly, schools. The last topic I wanted to talk about here, which I also just heard on YouTube in a video, kind of that, like, always when American people talk about schools in other countries, you'll often have as one of the points that either doesn't exist there, or that kind of you wouldn't see there, or if you came from that school to America, you would be surprised that school buses a thing, because that's really such an American thing. Like, I know in a few parts of Asia, I have to say, there is kind of also school bus systems, but they are kind of just taken from the idea of the Americans having school buses. Then the people there said, "Ah, yeah, let's take this idea," but kind of genuinely like school buses that someone came up with before the Americans did don't really exist. Now in Austria, there are a few special shuttle services. I think one or two schools kind of in the north of Vienna have like one or two bus courses that are basically part of a line, but only for the pupils as a special school service. But generally, school buses in that sense do not exist. Now, in the regional traffic around Vienna, for example, there are a few lines that only operate like from 6 till 8 and from 12 till 4 p.m. And those are kind of buses that are only supposed to be used by school children. But if I get on the bus, it's basically a normal line, so they will also let me on. And that's pretty much all we have there. But I must say, the public transport is much better in quite a few European countries or also in Asia than it is in the US. So if your school is only reachable by a Greyhound bus that goes once a week and by one train that kind of stops 8 kilometers away from your school, then I kind of get why there is the need for a school bus, because there's no one going to be living near the school, so you need to get all of the pupils there, or otherwise you're not going to have any pupils. So that's kind of useful if the public transport is not good. But often people then coming to places like Vienna and saying, yeah, in America there are school buses, so we need school buses here. No, we don't, because there is a good public transport. You can also, in Vienna or also in Lower Austria, you can walk nearly every distance that is kind of still near you. So even if I would have attended a school at the other end of the city, I would have not really needed to get up much earlier than I did already, and I could have taken a train, I could have taken the underground, I could have taken a few bus lines, or I could have just walked if I got up 2 hours earlier. So if that is not a big issue and the public transport is good, you don't need school buses. But yeah, if there are quite a few places that are nearly not reachable in any way, and there are either people living there or there's a school, then obviously you need it. But it kind of also upsets me a bit that American people go, yeah, in that country they don't have school buses, and in that country they don't have school buses. You are the only bloody country that really has school buses. Just get your shit together and not go like, yeah, other people don't have that, and we are so cool because we do. No, you are completely uncool because your public transport in a lot of places is just rotten. That's the problem here. Because if you have a good public transport, you don't need school buses. Yeah, I will touch on the topic again in a German version of Robin Redet, where I also talk about a lot of nonsense with a lot of nonsense. But yeah, so that was kind of my thoughts on things I just saw on YouTube recently, and well, like, yeah, I should possibly also give my nonsense and nuisance to that. Thank you very much for listening, and bye bye.